Well, thank you very much for this wonderful reception. It's a great privilege always to be here because I think each of you does such an incredible job in changing the health of South Africa. And as Adrian showed, we really need it. We have to have a revolution in changing our health behaviors, and you guys are leading it. When Adrian started Discovery Health, he couldn't have known what the future was, but he had a vision, and that's what I want to talk about today, is that the outcome in life is what you believe it will be. And I think that applies not just to health, but also, of course, to sport. I'm talking mainly about sport today. And I often wonder if what we die from isn't also what we believe we'll die from. That's a concept I haven't yet finalized, but it's something we might want to think about. This guy spent his whole life with one vision, to ride the biggest waves in the world. For 20 years, he dedicated himself to that choice. And he got one chance. And this chance was to ride in this particular competition, the Mavericks competition in San Francisco, on the day when the waves were 50 to 60 foot tall. 50 to 60 foot tall. He had 40 hours to get from Cape Town to San Francisco. He made it by 4 hours. He lost his surfing board and he lost his wetsuit. He arrived at the start 4 hours before the start with no equipment. He had to borrow equipment. Imagine you going and using equipment you've never used before. He takes off on the first wave. This is the first wave of his heat. And you can see it's quite a big wave. And if you want to see how big it is, just look at this guy. That guy, that's a big guy. And look at this wave. So this is probably 50 foot. And he makes it down to the bottom. And then the wave crunches him and carries him 1 kilometer underwater in 1.5 minutes. Can you imagine traveling 1 kilometer in 1.5 minutes underwater? And you don't know where you are because you're 40 foot below the surface. And of course, what happens next is you come up, and unfortunately, there was a whole series of waves, big waves coming. So of course, the next wave hit him, and the next wave, and the next wave. And on the 5th wave, he'd essentially given up. He decided, I'm going to drown. And these guys saved his life, so they pulled him out with these. This came and pulled him out. And they just caught him as he was about to drown. They pulled him out, put him on this jet ski, and took him out to the back of the surf. And they said, Chris, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue, or do you want to see the paramedics? And he said, I can't think straight now. I'm utterly exhausted. Give me 5 minutes. So he sat on his board, and he recounted his future. He said, I've got no money. I'm bankrupt. I've spent 18 years to get into this position. I haven't even got money to get back to the airport. I've got nothing. What do I do? He said, I've got 10 minutes to make a decision. He makes a decision. After about 2 minutes, he paddles out. He's utterly exhausted, having nearly drowned 10 minutes before. He says, I can't go and wait for a 50-foot wave, because if a 60-foot wave comes through, it's going to kill me. I've got to go to where the 60-foot waves are breaking. He paddles there and he waits. With 30 seconds to go, a 60-foot wave comes through. And he says, I've got one paddle stroke. I'm so exhausted, I can only paddle once. He paddled once, he catches the wave, and he wins the heat. He's got 40 minutes to recover. He recovers, he wins the next heat, he wins the next heat, he wins the next heat. He gets into the final, and he surfs this wave and wins the final. Now that's life for you. He had the choice to quit, and he refused to quit. He had every opportunity, he had every reason to quit. I'm going to die. He could have died. He chose it. He said no. Remarkable, remarkable, remarkable. Going to finish up with a story of when I started running, believe it or not, 40 years ago or something. There were no Nike running shoes. There was no company, just like there was no Discovery Health. And Phil Knight had one vision. He decided that they were going to produce running shoes in America that were the best in the world. And that was his view. Even before they'd sold a single running shoe, he said, we're going to be the best. And one of the people that he employed to work for him was this guy shown on the left, Jeff Hollister. And on the right is Steve Prefontaine, a wonderful athlete. And Jeff Hollister's had some medical problems, and he wrote his biography a few years ago. He has cancer of the colon, and obviously he had concerns about his longevity. So he decided he better write, what was it like? What was it living with these guys who made Nike famous? And he, in 2 or 3 slides, just explained to me what I think the goal of life is. It really is. So the book comes and it finishes with these last two slides. And here it is. I've thought often of what it all means. Life thrusts you into a competitive environment. How do you prepare for the realities and the unknown? And the first thing is hopefully you have a mentor. That's the coach. And he had a coach called Bill Bauman, who's recognized one of the great coaches of all time. And look at this, a time when someone has a belief in your future more than you do. And I've explained to you some famous examples where coaches had a much greater belief in the athlete than the athlete at that time had in himself or herself. And that's critical. The coach has to have the belief in the athlete. It's not about how long you live, but how you contribute. It's about doing your best and doing the right thing. It's about recovering from your mistakes and not giving up. It's about the baton pass to a new generation. It's about the realization that you can't go it alone. It takes a team. Even as individuals, we function in a team, and we have to understand that. And the stronger the team, the better we can achieve things. In the end, you're somewhere in the middle, part of a never-ending process. So we are individuals in the process. We're just a link in the chain. That's all we are. We're making South Africans healthier. But we're part of the chain. We're not the beginning and end. We're just part of the chain. The future will never remember what was in your bank account or what kind of car you drove. The future will remember that wild ride of life where you believed in others and left a gift behind for someone else to dream the impossible. That's it. You have to dream the impossible. Adrian Gore dreamed the impossible, and I've shown you athletes who dreamed the impossible. And then you leave a gift behind for someone else to dream the impossible. The gift was your own life. It does not matter whether it was long or short. What did you leave behind? And that's the question we all have to face. And Jeff Hollister had to think about it because he was facing his death, as it were. But we all have to face it, and the quicker we face it, the earlier we face it, the better. So what do we leave behind? And that's our challenge. Our challenge is to change South Africa. We're not a healthy nation. We've got to do something about it. So this is the summary, and there again is a picture of Chris Burdish. And again, you want to see how big that wave is? Just look, this is the guy. Look here, how tiny he is compared to that wave. At least in sport, belief systems influence to a very great extent the final outcome, and I think the same exists in our own lives and in our businesses. The outcome is what the subconscious mind believes will be the outcome. And if your subconscious mind is programmed to be a winner, you will be the winner. But if it's not properly programmed and you allow the doubts to come in, you will believe those doubts and you will use fatigue to express your cowardice. Winning nations, like winning individuals, win because they begin by believing that is what is the most likely outcome. And the whole basis of Adrian's talk this morning was exactly that. This is what's going to happen in the future. You may not believe it now, but that's what's going to happen, so let's get on and do it. So we need people a vision to show us where we've got to go, but we just have to believe them. And then if you take a team, a winning culture is built on many factors: team, character, perfectionism, understanding the why, and never quitting. And those are the realities we have to embrace as we move forward to embrace and make South Africans more healthy. Thank you very much for your attention.